Mason. Mason. I need yes or no about next Sunday.
I don't know.
You want to? Okay, you don't know yet. Okay, well, I'll get
You need
Keith
to know
then.
that.
I'll
Okay,
get
Keith,
yeah. Testing, 1, 2, testing. Give me some volume up back there. Testing, testing, 1, 2. Give me some volume back there. Anybody? Hello? There we go. Now we're getting a little bit. Testing, testing. A little bit more volume back there, please. I don't have the voice I used to have. All right. A lot of things we don't have now that we used to have, right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, we'll get started here. We're a little slim today. The goats must not have showed up. We've got the sheep here, and the goats must not have showed up. So we'll just start this around for the sheep. For the sheep here. Told the preacher, you want to go to heaven, come in here. If you don't, go to the preacher's class. And I told him, I said, well, really, I'm going to give them hell today. So we're going to be going the other way today. Rather than going up, we're going to be looking down today at our lesson. I hope that you will enjoy it. I hope everybody is suffering through this heat okay. We actually got just a few little raindrops at our house yesterday about, 6, 7 o'clock. We got just a little shower. I could tell because it was all turning to steam on the hood of my car. So it's been hot, hot, and more hot. Okay. I appreciate, again, everyone's interest in this subject and interest in what we're talking about here in our lesson. We've got supposed to end at the end of August. I said I needed maybe one more Sunday past that, but I think, isn't that right? I think we have an elder in the audience. Is the quarter end of August? Is that right, or do you?
Well, it shows like new ones starting next week, but it still has you listed.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I was supposed to start. Yeah, this week. So yeah, he gave me a few extra weeks, so that we could get through. I said we can wrap it up if we have to, but he said no. Take whatever Sundays that you need. So I'll be doing that so we can finish it up in style. As the book I think ends in a really some powerful 2 or 3 final lessons, and the one we're going to look at today is rather unique. Of course, it's entitled "Heaven's Only Alternative," and that happens to be the case. You're going to be somewhere for eternity. You are not going to die. You're going to live for all eternity. And you're going to live it you're here right now, but after this body gives you up, you're going to spend eternity, the rest of time. You're going to spend the rest of it either in heaven or in hell, so one or the other. So you've got to start making preparations now as to where you want to go, and I felt that it was only proper that in looking at the subject of heaven, that you have to look at the only alternative to that we have in after death. So we're going to get into this lesson, and it's not going to be anything exactly like you thought. I don't know what we all think about when we think about hell. I guess we just think about flames and fire and not wanting to be there. as you get into it a little more, I think it's good if we kind of go back and look at what Jesus taught us. And what Jesus taught us, you have to, even he went back into the Old Testament to pull out an image that he wanted us to have about the other place. You have heaven and you have the other place. So we're going to look at that story. Now, I've been a member of the church for almost all my life, over 60 years. But when I wrote this here, and when I studied this topic for the book, I read for the very first time I had ever heard the biblical account of that Jesus referred to about hell. I never heard it before. Now, I know it's in there, and I'm sure preachers have mentioned it or something, but to hear it in the way that you're fixing to hear it today from the Scriptures, it's probably something you've never really been, focused in on, or anyone has really talked about to give you the image that Jesus wanted us to have about hell. So we're going to look at that. We have one person there, and then we got finished. Thank you. So we're going to delve into this a little bit. Like I said, this is a little bit different from what you might have thought it would be. So let's turn over to 1 Kings chapter 11 here. 1 Kings chapter 11. Matter of fact, before you do that, let's start back at the beginning here. This is Leviticus chapter 20. Leviticus chapter 20. This is a part of the law. The book of Leviticus is, is still, Moses is still giving out bits and pieces of the law of Moses, as we call it, the old law. And so here is part of that teaching that goes along. Chapter 19 goes into all these teachings against idolatry that Israel is to be forbidden of. Remember, Israel came out of a very idolatrous nation and culture, that is in Egypt. Egypt had many, many gods that they worshipped, from the Nile to the sun, and they just had gods of all kinds, various creatures, animals that they worshipped. So, of course, he is teaching them against idolatrous worship. So chapter 20, it says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, You shall also say to the sons of Israel, Any man from the sons of Israel, or from the aliens sojourning in Israel, who gives any of his offspring to Moloch, shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. I will also set my face against that man, and will cut him off from among his people, because he has given some of his offsprings to Moloch, so as to defile my sanctuary and to profane my holy name. If the people of the land, however, should ever disregard that man when he gives any of his offspring to Moloch, so as not to put him to death, then I myself will set my face against that man and against his family, and I will cut off from among the people both him and all those who play the harlot after him, by playing the harlot after Moloch. So here God specifically identifies this false worship they have of this god called Moloch. Now, and he says, if anyone worships Moloch, you're to take and stone him to death, and if you don't do it, then I'll cut him off from and take care of him myself. So don't do this. Stay away from offering your sacrifices to Moloch, and he is particularly pointed out here as regard to that. So now we jump forward a couple hundred years. You have King David rules, and then you have Solomon comes in and rules. And of course, Solomon is considered a pretty good king. With one exception, he had some really problems. So now we're in 1 Kings chapter 11. 1 Kings chapter 11. And we'll read a few of these verses here, beginning at verse 1. So this is 1 Kings chapter 11. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, the Moabites, the Amorites, the Edomites, the Sidonianites, and Hittites women. So I hate to associate, hell with the fact that he married a lot of women. But this seems to be the background here, that King Solomon begins to marry all of these women. So it says, verse 2, from the nations concerning which the Lord has said to the sons of Israel, you shall not associate with them, nor shall they associate with you, for they will surely turn your heart away after their gods. So Solomon held fast to these that he loved. He had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned his heart away from the Lord. So what happened was Solomon didn't marry these women out of love. He married them out of power. He began to marry the women from the kings around him. Now, a king in those days might be, every city would have its king, that would rule. We would almost call them the mayor of the town, would be referred to as the king. So he was marrying all of the daughters of these mayors of all these cities, which gave him more power. So now there was an association, and it allowed him to have more power. So 700, including the wives of Pharaoh, even in Egypt. And so that's how he expanded his sphere of influence, is by marrying all of these women. But the problem was that he, verse 4 then, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not wholly devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonianites, and after the Milcom, the detestable idol of the Amorites. And Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not follow the Lord fully, as David his father has done. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable idol of Moab, on the mountain which is east of Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the detestable idol of the sons of Ammon. Thus he did for all his foreign wives, and burned incense and sacrifices to their gods. So here again we see Solomon then building these high places, simply mean altars and places of worship of all of these different detestable gods, and he joins in then in offering worship and sacrifices to all of these gods. And then Moloch, the detestable idol of the sons of Ammon, is included here, that he goes to build here east of Jerusalem. Now, we need to get into a little bit of geography here. I would have driven a wonderful map of Jerusalem if I'd had my whiteboard, but not having that, if you're looking at a map of Jerusalem or a picture of Jerusalem, if you look at that picture here, said the temple here up on Mount Sinai. And so it goes down into a valley, and it goes back up into the hill of Olivet. So that valley there is the Kidron Valley, which has a spring in it, and an important valley that goes back up. Well, then if you go to the southwestern side of the city, as you're looking at the map, which you have another valley that goes down, and that is a valley that back in Moses' day was owned by a man named Ben Hinnom that owned that particular valley. Ben Hinnom, as we read about in the Old Testament. So there is that valley. So it is in that valley then that Moses builds this detestable high place, a place of worship, to the god of Moloch, the detestable god of Moloch. So here we find then this particular aspect and thing going on. Now, we're going to go over here. I think it's to chapter of 1 Kings, to chapter, 2 Kings, 2 Kings 23. I knew it was 23, I just couldn't get the right book. So, 2 Kings chapter 20, 23 and 24. All right. In chapter 23, well, actually chapter 22, we find that Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jediah, and the daughter of Adiah of Bozak. He did right in the sight of the Lord and walked in the way of his father David, nor did he turn aside to the right or to the left. All right, so here, many years later, after, when Solomon did all of these things, built all these high places, God, of course, was not happy with him. But God told him that he was going to take the throne away from his sons. And God said this, I'll leave you in power out of respect for my servant David. So God, kind of because he loved David so much, and Solomon was David's son, he says, I'll leave you in power, but after your death, I'm going to take the kingdom away from your sons. And of course, we know that's what happened. The kingdom divided. His first two sons divided, and then it just got to be quite a mess. And most of these kings were not good kings. They continued to develop these high places and worship these idols. In reading this, it's just unbelievable when you read this how depraved Israel had become. There were, in the holy place, there were different little idols placed there where the priests would worship and care for various idols in the holy place. And in the temple itself, there were all kinds of places where people would come in and offer sacrifices to various gods as well as to the God of Israel. There were all kinds of vessels and things in the temple for idolaters' worship. Now just think how low Israel could go in doing that. But all of this came about because of mainly Solomon's effort. So now many years later, we jump forward, the kingdom's divided. It just gets more and more deplorable. And here comes little Josiah, 8 years old. He becomes king. But he, of course, is one of the good kings, and he begins to serve God and do things. So one of the things he wants to do, the temple has got into disrepair, and so he brings in the carpenters to do some repairs, some remodel to the temple itself. This would have been not Solomon's temple, but the second temple that was built after the exiles had come back. So in doing that remodeling, they find a little compartment, and they find a scroll of the law of Moses. evidently, even the law had become sort of out of sight, out of mind. The king, Josiah, had never really read much from the law. So they find this scroll, and the priests come to him, and they say, "Look what we found." And so the priests read to Josiah the words of the law, especially concerning this idolatrous worship. So he begins to clean house. Okay, he begins to clean house. He does everything. There are even prostitutes and things, were a big part of idolatrous worship. He begins to get them out of the temple. He really begins to clean house and go around the hillside, destroying all of these places of idolatrous worship. So now we read in verse 10, this is 2 Kings 23 and 10. He also defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter pass through the fire for Molech. So here is one of the places that he destroys. He destroys this altar to Molech. And there is a large fire pit here. He defiles Topheth. And there's this fire pit that they build. And what is it that they sacrifice to Molech? Their children. They throw their children in the fire. They build this large fire pit, which they keep burning in the hillside of Ben Hinnom. They're in the valley of Ben Hinnom. They build this thing, and they build a large fire pit. We'll get into that fire pit more in the New Testament. Build this fire pit which is kept roaring. And they mention Topheth, which is a word connected to drums, or the beating of drums. And what we believe happened was that as fathers would march their children into the flames, they would beat these loud drums to drown out the screams and cries of their children as they're being consumed in the fire. Let's think of that. How horrible that you would bring your little 2-year-old son and you would march him into the flames here as these drums beat, thinking that Moloch was the god of fathers, thinking that Moloch would somehow bless you by burning your children alive. And all this was done in the valley of Ben Hinnom. Now, in Hebrew, the term Ge, J-E, Ge, means valley of. So Gehinnom is where we get the word Gehenna, meaning the valley of Ben Hinnom. So this is the terminology that is there. So what exactly then does this have to do, as we might say, of hell? Well, as we go now from there into this destruction, we go to the New Testament and to Jesus' teaching here. We know that Jesus has used the word Hades before, and we've discussed Hades, and we kind of know that Hades is a separate spiritual place where our souls go after death, a place of torment, as well as a place of pleasure and of comfort, where we all want to go and be. This is a waiting place. This is not an eternal situation. Heaven is the eternal situation. So Jesus then begins to teach us about this term that he calls Gehenna. Now, in Jesus' day, when they destroyed the worship to Moloch, they didn't destroy the fire. The fire had been fueled in such a way, and I'll talk about that in a minute, that it was kept burning. And so if you have a large fire burning and you destroy this worship, what are you going to do? You've got this huge hillside of Ben Hinnom that is in constant flames. So over the years, they began to use it as a garbage pit. They would take their garbage and throw their garbage into the flames, and that, of course, would just keep it going. If they had a dead animal, they'd take that dead animal and they'd throw that dead animal along the hillside in the flames, and so it became, over the years, it became this huge, stinking, smelling, smoldering garbage pit in Jesus' day, which Jesus refers to then as Gehenna is the Hebrew. The Greek word for it is Gehenna, hell, Gehenna. So this is the hillside that Jesus pointed to and referred to and called what we would call hell. Now, Gehenna was, in our English Bibles, we can thank the British for giving us then the English word of hell, which they used to translate Gehenna, hell. Unfortunately, they translated Hades as hell too sometimes, which was an improper translation. So hell in our New Testaments is the word Gehenna, and it comes from that history and that story where these little children were being offered up in the sake of drawing some kind of attention to Moloch, to get some kind of attention to him. So Jesus, of course, uses the word Hades, but he also uses, let's see how many times here, quite a few times. No, I've got this written down. 11 different times in the New Testament. 10 times are used by Jesus, and one time it is used by his brother, James. In the book of James, the tongue is an evil and is set on fire of Gehenna, hell. Again, referring to that place. So Jesus then takes for our symbolism to understand the place of eternal punishment. The symbol for it was this a horrible place in its beginning, a disgusting, stinking piece of land that would have been known by people of that day as a Gehenna, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. A good description of it. I think I mentioned that almost from the time I moved to Tunica, I was asked to serve as the chaplain for the North Tunica Fire Department. We lived in Robinsonville, where all the casinos are, and they have a full-time fire department there, mainly to protect the casinos. I had been a volunteer fireman for many years, and so for that background, the chief asked me, well, we need a chaplain. Would you serve as our chaplain? I did, and enjoyed that work. For 12 years at 7 a.m. every Sunday morning, I was there at the fire department, meeting and greeting all the firemen, and then we had a devotional every Sunday morning I gave to the firemen for some 12 years on Sunday mornings. And I won a lot of calls. I had they issued me a radio. I knew what was going on. So one night I get a call. It's about 10, 11 o'clock at night, and the landfill is on fire. You know, Tunica has a landfill. And I'll tell you just a little side story here. When DeSoto tried to pass casino gambling, DeSoto County did, and the churches got together and voted it down. So then down in Tunica County, this bill came up to put in a landfill, and unbeknownst to people who voted to get the landfill, there had been a little rider stuck in there that people didn't know, also legalizing casino gambling. And that's how Tunica got casino gambling, very underhanded way that they kind of stuck that in the end. And most people didn't know that when they were voting for the landfill, they were also voting for the casinos. But anyway, so the landfill is there, and so I decide I'm going to go up there, and I met them at the bottom of the hill. If you go to casino, you'll see the big mountain, the big old landfill mountain. We go up there at night, and there's just flames jumping here and there and everywhere. And they even let me, occasionally they would give me the nozzle, let me have fun and putting a little fire out. So we're doing that. But the point is that Captain Jackson would tell me, we can never put this fire out. It's so far down there, and all this garbage ferments, and this fire gets in there, and it'll smolder, and then when it gets a little air, it'll pop up and stuff. So they made a lot of calls to the landfill because the landfill will be on fire. The fire just won't go out. And I'm sure there's some worms in there as well. So this is the place, the terminology that is in place, that is used here for us to understand this stinking, disgusting, historically awful piece of land that Jesus describes here for us. I want to turn over now. Let's look at some New Testament things, or some things that Jesus says here. I want to go to Mark 9, I think is where I want to go. Mark. Come on, be right there, Mark 9. Mark 9, is that not the passage that I want? What is the passage that I was wanting? Hang on with me just a minute. Yeah, okay, I'm almost there. Yeah, Mark chapter 9, I was right. I just wasn't looking at it right. Mark chapter 9, this is a setting where Jesus comes in and he sets a child in front of them, describing what heaven is like. A little 2 or 3 year old child. He sits there in the middle of them and is giving them a different lessons. But he says in verse 42, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe to stumble, it would be better for him if, with a heavy millstone hung about his neck, he had been cast into the sea. Millstone, those big round stones that they would put the hitch to, and the animal would walk around the millstone grinding the wheat. They weigh several tons. So he says it'd be better if you abuse a child they'd take that millstone, hang around your neck, and cast it into the sea. Then he says, if your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It's better for you to enter life crippled than having 2 hands to go into Gehenna, hell, into the unquenchable fire, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. If your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off. Better for you to enter life there than having 2 feet. To be cast into Gehenna, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And again, he says the same thing about your eye there. So I find it very unique that Jesus says here the people who abuse a child, that would think of throwing their child into the fire, that I will take that man and I will drown him either in the depths of the sea or I will throw him into the fires of Gehenna. So now Jesus, I think, is for sure referring back to that point and to that idea of Gehenna. So when we think about hell, this image of men who would throw their children into fire, this image of unquenchable fire, this image of idolatrous worship, this image now of this stinking garbage pit that exists in Jesus' day that he refers to. All of those things are what we should kind of think about then when we're thinking about the eternal place of punishment called hell in our English language. It is a place where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. Jesus also used other descriptions of hell that he liked, and that is a place of outer darkness where there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I think I mentioned in the book that the little girl asked Grandpa, well, Grandpa, what if you don't have any teeth? And Grandpa said, well, teeth will be provided. So you'll be gnashing teeth. So a place of outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So these are the reference and the destruction that we should think of when we think about Gehenna. Now, also now, as we get one last thing here, last point, to understand that Gehenna now takes place after the second death for us. That is spiritual death. In Christ we have spiritual life. Outside of Christ we have spiritual death. In Christ we go into heaven, a wonderful, blissful place where the streets are made of gold and God is on his throne and Jesus and the Holy Spirit are there and all of our loved ones are there, and as we worship God forever. But then the other place is a place of outer darkness, grinding of teeth, stinking, smelly garbage of mankind is there. All the serial killers, all the abuser of children, all of those that have done the most despicable things that we can think of are there, rotting and crying out forever and ever and ever. Is that the place you want to go? Place you want to be? Certainly not. It is certainly not. So that's the image then that Jesus leaves us with when he is talking about the place of eternal punishment. Hades, temporary waiting room for the Lord to return, and then also a place where people are tormented in this flame, as the rich man said. And then Gehenna is the eternal place. After the Lord comes back, destroys this world, takes us all back to the throne of God, to be with him forever, and then Gehenna, the place where the wicked will go forever and ever. Now, let's turn over to Revelation chapter 20. Revelation 20. And remember, this is the revelation of Jesus Christ. The revelation of Jesus Christ. So this is what Jesus is teaching us about the hereafter, and as well as where we are now. Revelation chapter 20. Of course, it starts off with the Satan, being bound for 1,000 years, and that kind of stuff, the end of days. So verse 7, when the 1,000 years are completed, Satan will be released from his prison. Without getting into too much here, the 1,000 years is what we're living in right now. This is the new age, referred to symbolically as the 1,000-year reign here, not of Satan, but of Christ. So he's bound for 1,000 years. During that time, we have protection from Satan. If we resist Satan, he'll flee from us through Christ. Then the 1,000 years are ended. Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations, which are the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for the way. The number of them is like the sand of the sea. And they came up on the broad plain of earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, and fire came down from heaven and devoured them, and the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are also, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Gehenna, or hell, is a place that is designed to bring about proper punishment for all the misdeeds that Satan has been up to for all of these 1,000 years, during all of this time of Christ's new covenant. During that time in which Satan does his dirty deeds, he does, but in the end he is taken and threw them into the lake of fire and brimstone. Tell me a little bit about brimstone. When you think of brimstone, what other story do you think about? Sodom and Gomorrah, yes. Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by fire and brimstone. This word brimstone, if you go back in even the Hebrew and then the Greek, you look at it, it's referring to sulfur or phosphorus. Those two minerals that are there. Both are highly flammable. You find sulfur in things like some of our fertilizers. As you know, they can take fertilizers and make bombs out of it because this sulfur and phosphorus is so flammable. You have the Dead Sea, as you know, running down. Jordan River empties into the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea has got two segments. The main top section, and then there's a little inlet there, and you go into then a smaller southern or bottom section. That part of the Dead Sea, for the most part, is dry now. It is believed that it's in that area that the city of Sodom and Gomorrah existed, in that southern plains below the Dead Sea. And that when it was destroyed, fire and brimstone rained down upon those cities. And to this day, they are mining out of that southern section of sulfur and phosphorus. Israel does. There's such huge deposits there of that. The stuff your matches are made of, that you strike and stuff, that's that type of material. And so Jesus is referring back here to the time in which Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed with fire and brimstone. And the only reason I kind of mention that is that in my own imagination, where I like to go sometimes, I kind of wonder if some of that fire and brimstone was not carried up and was what helped fuel the fires of Moloch, because those fires never went out. I just wonder if there were deposits there then from that area that was used to keep those fires alive. I don't know. But anyway, Jesus is comparing here the destruction by fire, the proper punishment that will happen to the devil. He is thrown, verse 10, into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophets are also. That would be, just to kind of keep it simple here, the false prophets in the religious world and the false prophets, evil men of the realm of government, shall we say. So it is a place where evil men go with Satan and are thrown into this lake of fire and brimstone, and they are tormented, tortured, day and night, forever and ever. Now that is the scariest part about Gehenna. What those little children suffered those first agonizing seconds as they die in the flames. To some extent, that is the justice that's coming to those of the beast and the prophet, and of Satan himself. The only thing is that they're kind of like the burning bush. In hell, you'll be burning, but you'll not be distinguished. You'll continue to burn in agony forever and ever. That's a long time. Is that where you want to go? People today out in the world that, yeah, I'm going to do this. I know I'm going to go to hell for it, but I'm going to do it anyway. They don't know what they're getting into. If they only knew, they only could hear the cries of those children burning up in the flames. If they only could smell the stench of the human garbage that is being burned in these flames, being in the flames in eternal darkness. People say, well, if there's fire there, that's where we get light, so it couldn't be dark there necessarily. My dad was a welder electrician. And there is a point in the welder's arc that you can't see the fire. It's there, but you can't see it. It's a certain flame and temperature where you can't see it. It doesn't put out any light. Simply say that to say that there'll be fire and there'll be darkness, and there you will be waterboarded day and night. You'll be tortured day and night forever and ever, because this place is designed for the devil. It is designed for the wicked people of the beast and the prophet, discussed it formally in the book, which I think refers to the Roman government and the Roman religion of that day, the evil prophets and things of that day. So it is there, and it is where it will forever be. So that's the place you don't want to go. That's the place you don't want to be. All right, got a few minutes. Anybody got another question or anything? Way back in the back, yes.
And in between the old and the Testament, for 400 years, when it comes to Matthew, God was so upset with the children of Israel because it was so terrible, their idol worship and all these type of things, that he didn't even speak to them. To a prophet or anything else, he said until the fullness of time, and then he goes to so much he was in Jesus for us. And this type of thing is coming into our society in all kinds of groups and all kinds of hidden ways. And there is material for that. It's been there for decades. And people, please don't underestimate that. They are in every group. They're even in our churches. They're in our communities. They're in our neighborhoods. And we need to put on the armor of God and be aware of that. And a lot of people just don't really have a reality about that. But last night I watched Midsummer Murders on WKNO about this very thing. People were doing a tradition in a town in England, and it's based on that, and they try to find these murders. They burn this thing, burn people inside the thing that was commemorated years ago, where witches, people were condemned as witches, and they really weren't. But it talks about the phosphorus, and it talks about what they found and caught the person that was burning people alive. That's not a fiction. It's not a murder story that we can sit down or watch on WKNO or somewhere else and put it away and say, oh, well, that's just a story. No, it is in mindfulness, it's in manifestation, it's in yoga, it's in something in Hindu and Buddha, and all of these things that are in our society. Is the way they groom people into the witches group. I have a relative, unfortunately, that has gotten into that, and they do all the social stuff back to, England and all kind of ways in our society that we need to be aware of.
A lot of evil in this world, there really is. Let me close with one thing. I got 4 minutes. I want to read one passage here. I got 5 minutes. This is from Jesus teaching Luke chapter 12, teaching many different parables and referring to unbelievers and slaves, unbelievers. And he says, and that slave who knew his master's will and did not get ready or act in accord with his will receive many lashes. But the one who did not know it and committed deeds worthy of a flogging will receive but few from everyone who has been given much. Much will be required. One has been entrusted with little, little will be asked. Are there degrees of punishment in hell? This passage has been used to kind of hint at that and refer to that, and I would not disagree with it necessarily. I think in the context it could be talking about the believers that would receive more opportunity to serve the Lord here, and some would receive less then, but the indication, kind of hard to ignore, that there might not be some degrees of punishment for those that never knew God, that were never taught, that never sought Him out, that were basically what we would say good moral people. Will they be punished the same as the most wicked in our society? A passage in Hebrews 10:26-31 talks about some would be beaten more severely. So there's that thought that maybe in hell there may be a little bit of mercy, maybe, I don't know, maybe. But remember, as we said, the greatest thing about heaven is that God is there. The worst thing about hell is that God isn't there. And that's the thing that makes this so very, very scary. In Luke 12, that's beginning verse 42 to 48. I think it's 47 that I read. 47. All right. Thank you all again for a good class. Hope you've been enjoying it. Be here next Sunday.